Welcome to the New Life, A Better Way to Health, Part 7. This seminar is not meant to replace medical advice. It is not intended to provide personalized medical advice in any way. The material presented in this seminar is for general educational and informational purposes only. Welcome back to our 7th session of learning the 10 principles of the new life. This session, we are focusing on the principle, live temperately. This has to do with the law of temperance, or put another way, balance in all things. So even if you are experiencing excessive, negative thinking, or too much doubting of yourself, we want to bring that into balance. Bringing in more positive thinking to balance out the negative is the perfect launching place for our study. This balance is critical to help us in the areas that may even be the very cause of our negative thinking, as we sometimes focus too much on our shortcomings rather than looking to the goal. You may be feeling that you began this journey to go from sickness to health, but instead, you may feel like you have gone from discouraged to hopeless, but never give up. But if you have struggled, if you have not been able to keep up, if you have not been able to keep your commitments, if you're feeling down about your shortcomings, then we want to assure you that if you continue to persevere and trust in the principles you have been learning, your success will come. So forgive yourself for your shortcomings and mistakes and don't stop now. We encourage you not to entertain the idea of stopping, even if the suggestion is coming from everywhere. Tell yourself it is time to go, not stop, because you can begin again. Forget what is past and look forward to what you can do in the next weeks. Can we all agree to do that? Remember that there is always a cause for sickness and disease. Do you remember the cause? In case you forgot, here is the definition. Sickness and disease are an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. Is temperance a law? And if so, is it possible to violate the law of temperance? Water was clear, nutrition was clear, sunshine was clear, and exercise was clear. But what about temperance? For this to be clear, we need to know exactly what temperance is. But first, a few areas where most people are particularly intemperate. Tobacco inhalation is shown to slow circulation and decrease oxygen to the cells. This in turn suppresses the body's immune system. Alcohol affects the liver, and when the liver cannot detox easily, the body's immune system is focused on cleansing the liver of toxins rather than building up the rest of the body. If the liver is backed up and bogged down with daily toxic exposures, it is less able to help you with allergic reactions. Coffee and caffeinated sodas suppresses the body's natural histamine response, which, though it suppresses the body's allergic reaction initially, eventually causes the immune system to weaken due to inactivity. Sugar greatly reduces the body's circulation. Just a few teaspoons of sugar each day will almost completely suppress the immune system from working properly.
Get rid of insulin, control blood sugar, minimize medication in just a few days? Sound too good to be true? Rosalie Isles did it. Rosalie Isles did it. She was hospitalized, overweight, suffering from hypertension and high blood pressure when she met Dr. Baxter Montgomery, and he immediately put her on a special diet.
But 3 days after I went on this diet, I was taken off the insulin. I had been on insulin since 1987. I no longer take insulin.
By getting on a plant-based diet and getting it completely off animal flesh, it allowed us to get off the insulin, and it allows her to lose weight.
Rosalie says she lost 35 pounds in 2 months and reversed her heart disease. This is Rosalie before the diet. Now, at the age of 81, she's confident enough to model in fashion shows.
I feel like a different person. Ever since I started coming to Dr. Montgomery, my life has been different. I'm completely changed.
Victor and Rosalie let go of cheeseburgers and say it worked.
I only put what I'm supposed to eat in my refrigerator, freezer, and pantry. That's the best way you can do it. Don't bring anything into your house, anything into your house that you can't have.
There are 3 things we can learn from this news clip. 1, it is never too late. She was 81. You can always persevere and determine how you finish. This is what our topic is about today. To live temperately, you cannot compromise on what you should and should not do. As Rosalie Iles said, don't bring anything into your presence that you know you shouldn't have. Temperance is self-control. Temperance is also having a work-life balance, is going to bed according to the body's natural rhythm, and temperance is doing those things that are good for your health and not those things that are bad or even good and bad at the same time. Temperance is not doing things in excess. Temperance is eating the right foods at the right time. And temperance is eating the right amount of food and not overeating. The point here is that temperance doesn't only apply to food and eating, but also with life balance. But typically, intemperance in diet is most prevalent and easy to spot. Notice how it manifests at a restaurant in the Phoenix area.
In a country where calories are posted on the menu and the White House has a vegetable garden, sometimes the reality looks more like this. This monument to greasy gluttony is called the Heart Attack Grill.
PBR.
It's a sort of hospital-themed Hooters located in Chandler, Arizona, a suburb of Phoenix.
We have full sugar Mexican Coke. Let's get your arms in over here.
Every customer must wear a hospital gown.
I'm dying.
And they are waited on by scantily clad nurses. Still, it's what's on the menu that gets most of the attention. The single, double, triple, or quadruple bypass burger. Oh, and they do have fries called flatliner fries, fried in lard, and those are unlimited. To wash it all down, how about a butterfat shake? The restaurant has become a bit of a national sensation.
I'm up another few inches. Who
In
needs
no
these
small
old
part
pants?
thanks
I
to
can eat
this
for free.
very big
And make
man,
sure-
Blair River, the so-called spokesmodel of the Heart Attack Grill.
I'm at 570 pounds, 6'8". Yeah, so.
We met Blair in January. Back then, he told us one of the perks of the job is eating free. Anyone who is over 350 pounds doesn't have to pay.
I'm big, you know what I mean? And so why not? But I don't eat here every day, so why not have fun with it and go with it as long as I can?
Sadly, we now know how long that was. Blair died last week at the age of 29.
While this was an extreme case, it is amazing how intemperate behavior, as far as drinking alcohol, coffee, smoking cigarettes, drug use, both legal and illegal, and overworking, have quickly become the norm in America and other developed nations, even though the negative effects are well known.
Overeating can be a challenging problem, but there are ways to kick the habit. Listen to your body and don't skip meals. Feeling starved may lead to eating more than your body needs. Watch your portions. Keep your plate small and nutrient-rich. Eat slowly and mindfully. After a meal, give it at least 10 minutes before deciding to go back for seconds. Your body needs time to digest and register when it's full.
Hey, I'm Jen Powder. I'm a weight loss and fitness expert, and today I'm here to dispel the myth of moderation. This came to light in a discussion I was having with one of my clients when she shared that she had this belief that she could have pretty much whatever she wanted as long as it was in moderation. But it's not true. You see, if you think about how food and the food business has come to be now that it's 2014, we've had a lot of changes in the last 100 years. The resources that went into, say, baking a pie were really quite intense. And so you could only ever have or make one, special dessert once a month. And it was shared amongst a big family. We can just go to a supermarket and buy, 5 different kinds of pies or whatever your favorite thing is, come home and eat them. Stopping at the grocery store and grabbing some chips and maybe some chocolate, and maybe if you bought some cookies at the bakery or you decided to make them. When we have a little bit of that stuff every day, we're putting more sugar, more flour, more butter, more calories into our body than most of us can handle. Because at the end of the day, the sad truth for us is that we just don't need that much food, but we live in a time where there's access to it 24/7. We're not meant to have dessert every single day. We're in fact not meant to have dessert every single week. It's meant to be special occasions. So my recommendation for you is to start to say no way more often than you say yes. And that includes, the little things, going to the supermarket and putting chips and granola bars and, cookies or whatever, ice cream, all of that stuff, and then having a little bit of it every day. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that tip is helpful because it'll be the one thing that can really change how effective your weight loss journey is. I'm going to be back next week with another video for you, so make sure you subscribe now so it can land right in your inbox. See you then. Bye.
Sugar and caffeine intake lead to hypertension. Increased fructose consumption is associated with elevated blood pressure. Caffeine decreases the body's insulin sensitivity. And sugar consumption even raises your overall cholesterol levels. Much of this country's intemperance and subsequent sickness and death comes as a result of so much confusion from the media as different, conflicting research studies are shared, paralyzing the public from doing anything other than continuing an unhealthy behavior. Notice in this next compilation of news clips reporting various research studies on coffee.
As you likely know, we've reported often here on World News about the powerful effects of coffee and the growing body of research telling us in the right amounts it can help us focus better and even fend off some disease later in life. But we ask tonight, what is it really doing to our brains? ABC's Lisa Stark with her own MRIs before and after.
It's the most popular drug in the world.
I need that little boost.
It's everywhere, from 320 milligrams in a Starbucks Cafe Grande, about the max you should have in a day, to energy drinks, to sodas, now even inhalable, 100 milligrams in an instant. But could that daily dose of caffeine be changing your brain? We turned to researchers at Wake Forest in North Carolina, where I underwent 2 MRI brain scans. This first scan with no caffeine in my system. Then I downed just 1 drink. Now my second MRI. This was my brain before caffeine. This was after. The difference was remarkable.
It's like a 40% drop in the blood flow to your brain. So that's a lot.
So before caffeine, with caffeine, the blood flow to my brain dropped about 40%.
40%.
Really?
Yes.
Why the drop? Caffeine blocks a chemical called adenosine, which controls blood flow to the brain. Add caffeine, blood vessels constrict, less blood circulates in the brain, and your blood pressure and heart rate go up. So if you skip your regular coffee, that surging blood can trigger a caffeine headache.
It's like trying to get a fire hose to pump blood up through your skull.
If you're a caffeine lover, your brain has actually changed. It now functions normally on caffeine.
How much caffeine do I have to drink to change the physiology of my brain?
Not very much.
Not very much?
No.
Like even a cup
One
a
cup
day?
a day will change your brain.
The good news, experts say for healthy adults, a few cups a day is not dangerous. But keep in mind, a little caffeine can do a lot. Lisa Stark, ABC News, Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Nothing confusing about that, is there? It is always good to see news clips that show the clinical studies in real time, like this one with the irrefutable and conclusive MRI. The clear evidence is that coffee changes our brains. This is our definition of temperance on the most basic level. Is it harmful or not? Point number 1. With so much confusion about what is actually good for us these days, a safer definition of temperance is using those things that are only good for us and are not at the same time bad for us. What is temperance? This is the definition that is best to have when there are so many conflicting studies that confuse us. If the conclusion is that the item has benefits but also has harmful effects, then live temperately and leave it alone. Point number 2. Temperance is an important principle of health, as the areas in which we engage in intemperate behavior usually affects the frontal lobe area of the brain. This is essential to know. Whether it is coffee, alcohol, food, or drugs, these behaviors affect our frontal lobe, arguably the most important area of the human brain. In the previous video on coffee, we saw that caffeine reduces the blood flow to our frontal lobe. Point number 3. The frontal lobe is the area of the brain that is the seat of reason, judgment, and morality. When the frontal lobe area is compromised through intemperance, unhealthy behavior is added to the mix, exacerbating the already bad situation, i.e. drinking and then driving. Point number 4. The use of caffeine raises blood pressure and heart rate. We'll say it again. Caffeine raises blood pressure and heart rate. Point number 5. Caffeine is the #1 drug in the world. True or false? What would you say to this? Is this true or false? Your answer is true. Coffee is a huge world commodity, second only to oil. What would you say the #2 drug is in the world? The next video will show you.
Vodka,
tequila,
scotch,
beer,
wine, rum,
gin,
whiskey,
alcohol. Alcohol probably took 20 years of my life, and you can't get that back.
Alcohol is a drug, which most people don't think it is, but it actually is. It's classed as a depressant, meaning it slows down vital functions in the body.
Alcohol is made through the fermentation of fruits and grains.
The process of fermentation is basically letting fruit sit and rot until it can produce a mind-altering effect when you drink it.
There's different types of things you can drink that have different amounts of alcohol in them. Like a beer, if you just drink beer, that has 2 to 6% alcohol. Wine is about 8 to 20% alcohol. And then you got your hard liquors, which are like vodka or whiskey, which are about 40 to 50% alcohol.
When someone drinks 2 or more drinks, it acts as a stimulant. When they drink more than that, it acts as a depressant.
If you binge drink, what you're doing is you're just drinking repeatedly over and over large amounts and large quantities of alcohol. If you put that much alcohol in your system at one time, you can get alcohol poisoning, which could lead you to go into a coma or even kill you.
You know, I haven't had a drink in 3 years, yet I'm reminded daily of my alcohol abuse because of the long-term effects. I have horrible short-term memory. and it makes everyday life very difficult for me. Just remembering names, remembering how to do things.
As a result of alcohol, I had high blood pressure, and I still have it.
Destroys your internal organs, and I mean, it can destroy your brain functions, your handwriting, small motor skills. It's definitely a poison.
I have liver pains, bone and muscle aches that just used to not be there, and it's not from age. I'm not that old. I should be in my prime right now, and I probably aged myself 20 years through alcohol abuse.
Alcohol is slow to kill, but it's the most hideous form of death.
Alcohol does more than impair judgment and give a hangover headache. It also compromises the immune system. But again, there are many reports that talk about how red wine is good for you. But we can't overlook the alcohol content that affects the frontal lobe. Some argue not only is it good for you, the Bible says we should drink wine. But is that really true? The term wine in the Bible can get a little confusing. That's because the same English word wine is used to refer to both unfermented and fermented grape juice. Sometimes the term new wine is used to refer to unfermented grape juice, which does make it more clear. Overall, you have to look at the context and compare verses to see which type of grape juice is being referred to. We can assure you, the Bible definitely does not promote alcohol. Please feel free to contact us if you would like more information on this. Point number 6. The antioxidant resveratrol found in red wine is also found in red grapes. This is the compound that is good for heart health. Fermentation is not needed. We have looked at coffee and alcohol, but the area where we all need to be mindful of being extremely temperate is sugar. Why sugar? Well, it is because it is sweet and completely acceptable by the masses. We'll spend the remainder of our time on sugar.
Sugar, sugar, I wanna make you happy. Like the sun you shine, you brighten up a gray day. Sugar, sugar, so good, so good. Sugar. Sugar, sugar, you really make me happy. I get to feeling high, I wanna shout it from the mountainside. Sugar, you're so good, so good. Sugar. Now is the time to live your life without fuss. Because sugar, because now is the only time there ever was. You can make life sweet, you could, you could. Sugar, sugar, I wanna make you happy. I wanna give you the good love. I wanna give you a bear hug. Sugar, you're so good. Sugar.
Point number 7. Refined white crystallized sugar is a toxic poison that suppresses the immune system and has been linked to cancer. According to our next video, sugar is actually toxic and can lead to many of the lifestyle diseases, including cancer.
The chances are good that sugar is a bigger part of your daily diet than you may realize, which is why our story tonight is so important. New research coming out of some of America's most respected institutions is starting to find that sugar, the way many people are eating it today, is a toxin and could be a driving force behind some of this country's leading killers, including heart disease. As a result of these findings, an anti-sugar campaign has sprung up, led by Dr. Robert Lustig, a California endocrinologist, who believes the consumption of added sugars has plunged America into a public health crisis.
Is sugar toxic?
I believe it is.
Do you ever worry that it just sounds a little bit over the top?
Sure, all the time. But it's the truth.
Dr. Robert Lustig is a pediatric endocrinologist at the University of California, San Francisco, and a pioneer in what is becoming a war against sugar.
Deep breaths.
Motivated by his own patients, too many sick and obese children, Dr. Lustig has concluded that sugar, more than any other substance, is to blame.
What are all these various diseases that you say are linked to sugar?
Obesity, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease itself.
Lustig says the American lifestyle is killing us.
And most of it, you say, is preventable.
75% of it is preventable.
While Dr. Lustig has published a dozen scientific articles on the evils of sugar, it was his lecture on YouTube called Sugar, the Bitter Truth that brought his message to the masses.
I'm standing here today to recruit you in the war against bad food.
By bad food, Dr. Lustig means the obvious things, such as table sugar, honey, syrup, sugary drinks, and desserts, but also just about every processed food you can imagine, where sugar is often hidden. Yogurts and sauces, bread, even peanut butter. And what about the man-made, often vilified sweetener, high fructose corn syrup?
Is it worse than just table sugar?
No, because it's the exact same. They are basically equivalent. Problem is, they're both bad. They're both equally toxic.
Since the 1970s, sugar consumption has gone down nearly 40%. But high fructose corn syrup has more than made up the difference. Dr. Lustig says they are both toxic because they both contain fructose. That's what makes them sweet and irresistible. But as sugar and high fructose corn syrup became cheaper to refine and produce, we started gorging on them. Americans now consume 130 pounds per person a year. That's a third of a pound every day. Dr. Lustig believes those sweeteners are helping fuel an increase in the most deadly disease in America, heart disease. Kimber Stanhope's studies suggest that when a person consumes too much sweet stuff, the liver gets overloaded with fructose and converts some of it into fat. Some of that fat ends up in the bloodstream and helps generate a dangerous kind of cholesterol called small dense LDL. These particles are known to lodge in blood vessels, form plaque, and are associated with heart attacks.
And what are you starting to see?
We found that the subjects who consumed high fructose corn syrup had increased blood levels of LDL cholesterol and other risk factors for cardiovascular disease.
How quickly did these changes occur?
Within 2 weeks.
Dr. Lustig believes that's primarily because we replaced a lot of that fat with added sugars.
When you take the fat out of the food, it tastes like cardboard. And the food industry knew that. So they replaced it with sugar.
This idea that sugar increases this particularly bad LDL, the small, dense particles that are associated with heart disease. Do most doctors, do they know this?
No, they do not know this. So this is new.
And it turns out sugar has become a major focus in cancer research too. Lewis Cantley is looking at the connection.
If you limit your sugar, you decrease your chances of developing cancer.
Absolutely.
Cantley, a Harvard professor and the head of the Beth Israel Deaconess Cancer Center, says when we eat or drink sugar, it causes a sudden spike in the hormone insulin, which can serve as a catalyst to fuel certain types of cancers.
What we're beginning to learn is that insulin can cause adverse effects in various tissues. And of particular concern is cancer.
Why? Nearly a third of some common cancers, including breast and colon cancers, have something called insulin receptors on their surface. Insulin binds to these receptors and signals the tumor to start consuming glucose.
So this is your body eating.
Every cell in our body needs glucose to survive. But the trouble is, these cancer cells also use it to grow.
So if you happen to have a tumor that has insulin receptors on it, then it will get stimulated to take up the glucose that's in the bloodstream. So rather than going into the fat or the muscle, the glucose now goes into the tumor, and the tumor uses it to grow.
Sugar also affects our immune system. It prevents us from fighting off viral infections, especially around the holidays. Let's take a look at how this works.
Hey doctors, I'm David. I heard you can get sick from eating too much sugar. Is that true? Thanks, doctors.
Thanks, David, for that question. You know, this show's been about avoiding the cold and flu, and the flu shot, said it many times throughout the show and past shows, your number one protection. But, Dr. Sears, that question, valid one.
Certainly, the sugar itself isn't going to give you the virus, but we do know that eating too much sugar will cut down your immune system so that you can't fight off that virus as easily. Let me show you something. If you look at most of the holiday schedule, we start eating sweets in October with Halloween, and then there's Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's Eve, then Valentine's Day. And it just so happens that if you overlay cold and flu season with that, it peaks, you know, it starts in October, peaks in February, and goes away. You know, coincidence? I don't know.
Not.
I mean, you know, I certainly see the day after, the week after Halloween, my office gets much, much busier.
So you're basically saying that, yeah, this isn't going to give you the cold or the flu, but if you eat a cup of this rather than, say, a cup of green tea like we shared in the last segment, you're taking something that can be maybe pro-inflammatory.
Right, exactly. And
so your symptoms may be worse, or you may manifest the cold or flu.
Right, you're going to be more prone. The more sugar you eat, the more sugar you eat, the more prone you are to getting sick.
And
Our final video highlights the real crux of the matter, what living intemperately does to our brains. For example, consuming sugar is doing more damage to our mental health than we realize. It impairs our frontal lobe and is disrupting our normal chemical and biological functions of our brains, which again leads to more intemperance.
Madeline Fernstrom is here to reveal the big impact that sugar is having on your brain and what you can do about it. Madeline, good morning.
Good morning, Natalie.
Not just talking about sugar, the white stuff. We're talking about even in this bag of potato chips. It's the amount of carbohydrates, right?
The kind of carbohydrates in highly processed foods that really make your blood sugar go up and down really crazy. So what is interesting about this particular study is that we took out the factor of saying, is it tasty food versus not tasty food, junk food versus sort of healthy, natural foods, sugary foods, or processed carbohydrates like chips and sodas, these kinds of things, versus things that are high in fiber, keep your blood sugar stable and low. And the interesting thing is that there were not only changes in blood sugar, which you would expect, but also changes in brain activity.
And you have images of the brain. This is your brain on sugar, we should say, right?
This is your brain on sugar. So you take a look, and what we're going to look at first is the brain, of course, will light up whenever all these little red areas are lighting up, and you would expect that with eating something. What you want to look at is right here, this area in the middle. In low glycemic and sort of that low sugar, healthier food, you don't see anything in this area. It's just sort of yellowish. If we move to the high sugar, high glycemic drink, you see right in the middle here, there's this little red spot. Okay, and what that shows is more brain activity. And looking at brain activity in an MRI simply means you have more blood flow and more activity. If you do what's called a subtraction and sort of enhance these differences, you see this red part in the middle is lit up, and that's indicating a lot of activity in the brain center for reward and cravings and even addiction. So this is sort of the connection of saying if you give two drinks where the carbohydrates are different, high sugar and low sugar, with the high sugar junk food kind of drink, you get a lot more reward and get a bigger brain effect. And if you wonder, I eat chips and I can't stop eating, I drink soda and I can't stop drinking this, and all this sugar makes me want to have more sugar, there may be a connection that is biological, because what the study found is that when you have high sugary foods, you get a big increase in your blood sugar, and then it dips. And that dip several hours later can lead you to overeat, and you wonder, why do I keep eating like this, and choose even more junky food. So the idea is that there's a component in your brain. Now remember, we're hardwired for survival. We have to eat. So in a way, you know, we need to make food part of something we do every day. But now that the food supply has changed to a lot of processed foods without fiber that raise your sugar a lot, we start to think maybe there's a biological versus behavioral reason for this.
As we saw in this video and the previous video, beware of even the hidden sugars. Point number 8. Examples of intemperance can include the use of alcohol, tobacco, and caffeine. But intemperance is not limited to what we ingest, but can also involve overworking or staying up too late at night. Temperance is moderation in the things that are good and total abstinence from the things that are foul. Francis E. Willard. Keep going and don't give up. We'd like to thank you again for attending this week's session on Living Temperately. And until next time, always remember, your health is your choice.